The gleaming hull of the interstellar ship Horizon sliced through the inky void, its destination the mysterious world of Nova Prime. Inside the bridge, Ambassador Rick Johnson stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the approaching orb of blue and green. After months of travel, they were finally here, humanity's first official diplomatic mission to an alien world. Entering Nova Prime's orbit in 5 minutes, Ambassador, announced Captain Sarah Chen from her command chair. Rick nodded, his stomach churning with a mix of excitement and apprehension. At 45, he was one of Earth's most seasoned diplomats, but this mission dwarfed anything he'd done before. The fate of humanity's relationship with an advanced alien civilization rested on his shoulders. "Any last words of wisdom, Ambassador?" asked Dr. Maya Patel, the mission's xenobiologist. Her dark eyes sparkled with contained enthusiasm. Rick turned to face his small team. "Remember your training. We're here to build bridges, not burn them. These Novians may look similar to us, but their culture could be wildly different. Stay alert, stay respectful." As the ship began its descent towards the orbital station, Rick's mind raced through the scant information they had on the Novians. Humanoid in appearance, technologically advanced, and willing to engage in diplomacy. Beyond that, they were stepping into the unknown. The docking procedure went smoothly, and soon Rick led his team through the airlock and onto Nova Prime's orbital station. The architecture was sleek and organic, all curved lines and iridescent surfaces that seemed to pulse with an inner light. A delegation of Novians waited to greet them. Rick's breath caught in his throat as he took in their appearance. If not for their slightly larger eyes and the faint shimmering patterns on their skin, they could have passed for human. "Welcome to Nova Prime, Ambassador Johnson," said the lead Novian in perfect English, her voice melodious. "I am Zara, Chief of Interspecies Relations. We are honored by your presence." Rick bowed slightly. "The honor is ours, Chief Zara. We come in peace and friendship, eager to learn about your people and culture." Zara's lips curved in what Rick hoped was a smile. "Then let us begin with a tour of the station. There is much to discuss." As they walked, Rick noticed how the Novians kept a careful distance from his team. He filed the observation away for later consideration. The tour concluded in a large conference room. As Rick's team settled into their seats, a stern-faced Novian entered, flanked by 2 others who looked like security. "Ambassador Johnson," Zara said, "allow me to introduce Consul Aria, who will be overseeing our negotiations." Aria fixed Rick with an intense gaze. Despite her severe expression, Rick couldn't help but notice her striking beauty. She looked so human it was uncanny, save for the faint shimmering patterns on her skin that seemed to shift and dance in the light. "Consul," Rick said, rising to greet her, "it's an honor to." "Before we proceed," Aria interrupted, her voice sharp, "there are protocols you must understand. Chief among them, there is to be absolutely no physical contact between our species. Is that clear?" Rick blinked, taken aback by her brusque manner. "Of course, Consul. Though, may I ask why?" "The reasons are not your concern," Aria snapped. "Simply follow the protocol." An awkward silence fell over the room. Rick glanced at his team, seeing his own confusion mirrored in their faces. "Perhaps," Zara interjected smoothly, "we should begin with a brief overview of our respective cultures to establish common ground." The next few hours passed in a flurry of information exchange. Rick found himself fascinated by Novian society. Their emphasis on collective consciousness, their advanced biotechnology, their deep connection to their planet's ecosystem. Yet throughout it all, Aria remained cold and aloof, her responses clipped and often bordering on hostile. As the meeting drew to a close, Rick stood to address the room. "Thank you all for this illuminating discussion. I believe we've laid a strong foundation for future cooperation between our peoples. Consul Aria, despite our rocky start, I hope we can move forward in a spirit of mutual respect and understanding." He extended his hand, a reflexive diplomatic gesture ingrained after decades of negotiations. Several things happened at once. Zara cried out, "No!" Aria's eyes widened in shock, and before Rick could process his mistake, his hand clasped Aria's. A jolt like electricity surged through Rick's body. He saw Aria's eyes roll back in her head as she crumpled to the floor. Chaos erupted in the conference room. Novian security swarmed around Aria's unconscious form. Zara was shouting orders. Rick's team huddled around him protectively as Novian guards advanced, weapons drawn. "What have you done?" Zara's voice cut through the pandemonium. Her earlier friendliness evaporated. "You were expressly forbidden from physical contact." Rick's mind reeled. "I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Is she all right?" A groan from the floor drew everyone's attention. Aria stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She sat up slowly, aided by her security team, and fixed Rick with a gaze of pure venom. "You fool," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Before Rick could respond, another Novian burst into the room. He conferred briefly with Zara, who turned to Rick with an expression of mingled disgust and disbelief. "Ambassador Johnson," she said, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage, "scans confirm that you have impregnated Consul Aria." Rick's jaw dropped. "That's impossible. We only touched hands for a second." Which was more than enough time for a transfer of nanites. Aria spat, struggling to her feet. "Your human DNA has merged with mine. A new consciousness is already forming." Rick's head spun. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some kind of misunderstanding or mistranslation. "Please," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "There must be some mistake. Let's discuss this calmly." "There will be no more discussion," Zara cut him off. "You and your team are confined to your quarters until we decide how to handle this violation. Guards, escort them out." As they were led away, Rick caught a final glimpse of Aria. The hatred in her eyes chilled him to the bone. Whatever bridges he'd hoped to build between their species had just gone up in flames. Back in their quarters, Rick's team exploded into a frenzy of questions and recriminations. "How could you be so careless?" Dr. Paddle demanded. "You're supposed to be our top diplomat." "It was an accident." Rick shot back, pacing the room like a caged animal. A reflex. How was I supposed to know a simple handshake could cause, whatever this is? Captain Chen, ever the voice of reason, stepped between them. "Arguing won't solve anything. We need to figure out our next move. The mission's clearly in jeopardy, and if we're not careful, this could spiral into an interplanetary incident." Rick ran a hand through his hair, mind racing. "You're right. We need more information. Maya, what do you make of this nanite transfer they mentioned?" Dr. Patel frowned, her scientific curiosity overtaking her earlier anger. "It's fascinating, really. Their biology must be radically different from ours to allow for such rapid genetic exchange. But without more data, I can't even begin to understand the mechanics of it." A chime at the door interrupted their discussion. A grim-faced Novian guard entered, flanked by two others with weapons at the ready. "Ambassador Johnson," the guard announced, "your presence is required in the medical bay for examination. The rest of you will remain here under guard." Rick's team protested, but he waved them off. "It's all right. I'll go peacefully. Maybe we can sort this mess out." As he was led through the station's winding corridors, Rick's mind whirled with possible scenarios and diplomatic strategies. But nothing in his years of experience had prepared him for anything like this. The medical bay was a marvel of alien technology. Sleek machines hummed and pulsed with an otherworldly energy. In the center of it all stood Aria, her face a mask of cold fury. "Lie down," she commanded, pointing to an examination table. Rick complied, his heart pounding. "Consul, please, can we talk about this? There has to be a way to." "Silence," Aria snapped. She turned to a Novian doctor. "Begin the scan. I want to know exactly what his human DNA is doing to my system." As the scan commenced, Rick felt a tingling sensation throughout his body. He watched as holographic displays sprang to life around him, showing swirling patterns of light he couldn't begin to interpret. The doctor's eyes widened as he studied the readouts. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The merger is progressing far more rapidly than anticipated. The new consciousness is already beginning to form neural pathways." Aria's face paled. "How is that possible?" "It's only been a few hours. It seems the human's genetic material is catalyzing the process in unexpected ways," the doctor replied. "This hybrid entity, it could be unlike anything we've ever seen." Rick's head swam with the implications. "Wait, are you saying that this child, or whatever it is, will be born soon?" Aria whirled on him, eyes blazing. "This is not a child. It's an abomination, a threat to the purity of our species." "Enough," a new voice rang out. Zara strode into the medical bay, her earlier diplomatic demeanor replaced by an aura of command. "The High Council has made its decision. Ambassador Johnson, your reckless actions have placed our entire planet at risk. You and your team will be detained indefinitely while we determine how to proceed." Rick sat up, desperation clawing at him. "Please, be reasonable. This was an accident, not an act of aggression. Surely we can find a peaceful resolution." Zara's expression softened slightly. "I understand this was unintentional, Ambassador, but intentions matter little in the face of potential catastrophe. The hybridization process you've initiated is unprecedented. Until we understand its full implications, we cannot risk further contamination." As Novian guards moved to escort him out, Rick locked eyes with Aria. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of something beyond anger in her gaze. Fear, perhaps, or uncertainty. "What will happen to her?" Rick asked Zara, nodding towards Aria. "That is no longer your concern," Zara replied coldly. "Guards, return the ambassador to his quarters. Full lockdown protocols are now in effect." As Rick was led away, his mind raced. He had come to Nova Prime to forge a connection between their species. Instead, he had created one in a way he could never have imagined, and potentially doomed both their worlds in the process. The doors to his quarters hissed shut behind him, the ominous sound of multiple locks engaging. His team looked up, hope fading from their eyes as they saw his grim expression. "Well," Captain Chen asked, "how bad is it?" Rick sank into a chair, the weight of the situation crushing down on him. "Bad," he said quietly. "Very, very bad." As he recounted what had transpired in the medical bay, Rick couldn't shake the image of Aria's face from his mind. Somewhere on this alien station, a new life was forming, a bridge between their species, but one that threatened to become a chasm instead. He had come to Nova Prime to make history. Now he feared he had set both their worlds on a collision course with disaster. A forbidden alliance. Rick stood frozen at the viewport of his quarters, staring out at the alien stars. The diplomatic catastrophe he had unwittingly triggered threatened to escalate into an interplanetary conflict. He had to do something, and fast. A soft chime from his communicator jolted him from his thoughts. An encrypted message flashed on the screen. "Medical Bay, 200. Come alone." Rick's heart raced. Aria wanted to meet. It could be a trap, but it was also the first potential breakthrough they'd had since being confined. "What is it?" Captain Chen asked, noticing his reaction. Rick hesitated for only a moment. "Nothing important, just another warning to stay put." He couldn't risk anyone trying to stop him from this clandestine meeting. When the station's chronometer ticked over to 1:55, Rick put his plan into action. He had discovered a minor glitch in the door's locking mechanism earlier, not enough to escape completely, but sufficient to slip out undetected. The corridors were eerily silent as Rick made his way to the medical bay, every shadow seeming to conceal a guard ready to apprehend him. But he reached his destination without incident, slipping inside the dimly lit room. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Aria's voice startled him. She stepped out from behind a bank of medical equipment, her expression unreadable. Rick's diplomatic training kicked in, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. I'm here to find a solution, Consul, for both our peoples. Aria's eyes narrowed. And what solution do you propose for this abomination growing inside me? The harshness of her words stung, but Rick pressed on. It's not an abomination. It's a bridge between our species, a chance for understanding we never could have imagined. You don't understand what you've done, Aria hissed, advancing on him. This bridge could destroy everything. Our culture, our very way of life. Rick stood his ground. Or it could be the key to a future of cooperation and shared knowledge. Aria, please, help me understand your fears. Something in his tone seemed to reach her. Aria's shoulders sagged slightly, the mask of anger slipping to reveal a flash of vulnerability. You want to understand? Fine. Follow me. She led him to a secluded corner of the medical bay, activating a holographic display. Rick's eyes widened as he saw a swirling mass of light and color, pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. This is the developing consciousness inside me, Aria explained, her voice barely above a whisper. It's evolving at an unprecedented rate. Our scientists can barely comprehend what they're seeing. Rick stared at the display, mesmerized. It's beautiful, he breathed. Aria's head snapped towards him, eyes flashing. It's dangerous. This hybrid mind, it has the potential to outstrip both our species, to become something beyond our control. Or to bridge the gap between us, Rick countered. Aria, think of the potential. This could be the greatest diplomatic breakthrough in history. At what cost? Aria demanded, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice now, a crack in her resolve. Rick took a chance, reaching out to take her hand. This time, there was no shock, no transfer of nanites, just the warmth of skin on skin. We can face this together, he said softly. Let me help you. Let me understand your world, your culture. There has to be a way forward that doesn't end in fear and isolation. Aria's fingers tightened around his, her eyes searching his face. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. From that night on, Rick and Aria began a dangerous dance of clandestine meetings and forbidden exchanges. Under the guise of medical checkups, they spent hours talking, sharing the intricacies of their respective cultures and the fears that drove them. Rick learned of the Novian deep connection to their collective consciousness, how the idea of individual thought was both thrilling and terrifying to them. Aria, in turn, came to understand the human drive for exploration and connection. As the days passed, their conversations grew more personal, the barriers between them crumbling. Rick found himself captivated by Aria's quick wit and hidden warmth. Aria discovered a gentleness in Rick that belied his forceful diplomatic persona. One night, as they pored over data on the developing hybrid consciousness, their hands brushed. The simple touch sent a jolt through both of them, far more potent than any nanite transfer. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything changed. Their lips came together in a kiss that defied physics and biology, two alien beings finding a connection that transcended their differences. The revelation. As dawn broke over Nova Prime, Rick and Aria knew their secret alliance could not remain hidden much longer. The hybrid consciousness was growing stronger, its presence undeniable. They needed to find a way to present their case to the High Council, to show that this new life form was not a threat, but a promise of unity. We need to be strategic, Rick said, pacing their makeshift command center. We have to convince them that this hybrid is an asset, not a danger. Aria nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. We need evidence, something tangible that proves the potential benefits. The data we've gathered so far is compelling, but it's not enough. We need a breakthrough. Rick paused, a thought striking him. What if we could communicate with the hybrid? If we could demonstrate its intelligence and willingness to cooperate, it might sway the council. Aria's eyes widened. It's risky. The hybrid is still developing. We don't know how it will react. It's a risk we have to take, Rick insisted. If we don't, the Council might decide to terminate it, and us. Together, they set to work, utilizing the advanced technology of the medical bay to establish a connection with the hybrid consciousness. As they activated the communication interface, a surge of energy pulsed through the room. The holographic display flickered, then solidified into a coherent pattern. "Greetings," a voice echoed in their minds, resonant and curious. "I am the union of two worlds. Who are you?" Rick and Aria exchanged a glance, astonished by the clarity and depth of the hybrid's voice. "I am Rick Johnson, a human ambassador," Rick replied, his voice steady despite the awe he felt. "And this is Aria, a Novian consul. We are here to understand you, to learn from you." The hybrid's presence seemed to pulse with warmth. "I am aware of my origins. I am a bridge, a new beginning. But I sense fear and uncertainty. Why?" Aria stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "Our people are afraid of what they don't understand. They see you as a threat to our way of life." "And you?" the hybrid asked. "What do you see?" Aria took a deep breath. "I see hope. A chance to build something greater than either of our species alone. But we need to convince the others." "Then let us work together," the hybrid said. "Show them that I am not a threat, but an ally." Over the next few days, Rick, Aria, and the hybrid worked tirelessly to prepare their presentation for the High Council. They compiled data, crafted arguments, and rehearsed their speeches, knowing that everything depended on this one chance. When the day of the presentation arrived, the tension in the council chamber was palpable. The Novian leaders watched with suspicion and unease as Rick and Aria took their places. "Honored council members," Aria began, her voice clear and unwavering. "We stand before you today to present a new possibility for our future. The hybrid consciousness that has emerged from our accidental union is not a threat, but a bridge, a chance for unity and cooperation." Rick stepped forward, projecting confidence. "We have communicated with the hybrid. It possesses intelligence, empathy, and a deep understanding of both our cultures. It seeks to help us grow stronger together." The holographic display activated, revealing the swirling patterns of the hybrid's consciousness. "Greetings, council members," the hybrid's voice echoed through the chamber. "I am the union of two worlds. I come in peace, to learn and to share." A murmur of astonishment rippled through the council. The hybrid's presence was undeniable, its voice resonant with sincerity. "Together, we can achieve greatness," the hybrid continued. "We can overcome our differences and build a future where both our species thrive. But we must act with courage and trust." For a long moment, silence reigned in the chamber. Then one of the elder council members rose, her expression thoughtful. "This hybrid offers a vision of hope, but it also challenges our deepest fears. We must consider carefully." Another council member nodded. "But we cannot ignore the potential benefits. This is an opportunity unlike any we have ever encountered." As the debate continued, Rick and Aria felt a glimmer of hope. The council was listening, weighing the possibilities. The hybrid's presence had opened a door, and now it was up to them to walk through it. A new dawn. After hours of deliberation, the High Council reached a decision. The hybrid consciousness would be allowed to continue developing, under strict observation. Rick and Aria were to oversee the process, working closely with Novian scientists to ensure its growth and integration into both societies. As they left the council chamber, Rick and Aria felt a mix of relief and apprehension. The first hurdle had been cleared, but many challenges lay ahead. "We did it," Rick said, a weary smile on his face. "We've given the hybrid a chance." Aria nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "But our work is just beginning. We need to ensure that this hybrid truly becomes a bridge between our species." Over the following weeks, Rick and Aria dedicated themselves to the task. They monitored the hybrid's development, facilitated communication between it and the Novian scientists, and worked to build trust between their respective peoples. As the hybrid consciousness continued to grow, It demonstrated remarkable abilities. It could process vast amounts of information, solve complex problems, and even create innovative solutions that neither humans nor Novians had conceived of before. One day, as they observed the hybrid's progress, Arya turned to Rick. "Do you ever wonder what the future holds for us? For our species?" Rick nodded. "Every day. But I believe that together, we can create something incredible. This hybrid is just the beginning." Arya smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "I think you're right, and I look forward to discovering that future with you." As they stood side by side, watching the hybrid consciousness explore its potential, they knew that they had taken the first step towards a new era of cooperation and understanding. The path ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it together. In the end, the accidental handshake that had sparked a diplomatic crisis became the catalyst for an unprecedented alliance. Rick and Arya's forbidden connection had forged a new bond between their species, one that promised to reshape the future of both worlds. And as the hybrid consciousness continued to evolve, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of two civilizations, united in their quest for a brighter, more harmonious tomorrow. Growing pains. As the hybrid consciousness continued to develop, its presence became more integrated into both human and Novian societies. However, this newfound alliance was not without its challenges. Skepticism and fear still lingered among many, and incidents of unrest and opposition began to surface. Rick and Arya found themselves at the center of these tensions, striving to maintain peace and foster understanding. They traveled between Earth and Nova Prime, holding meetings, giving speeches, and mediating disputes. Their bond, once forbidden, now symbolized the hope for a united future. One particularly tense situation arose when a faction of Novians, opposed to the hybrid project, staged a protest outside the research facility. Rick and Arya arrived to find the crowd growing restless, their voices raised in anger and fear. "We must address them," Arya said, her expression resolute. "They need to hear the truth from us." Rick nodded. "Let's do it." They stepped forward, facing the crowd together. Arya raised her hands, calling for silence. "My fellow Novians, I understand your fears. Change is always daunting, especially when it challenges our deepest beliefs. But I stand before you as someone who has witnessed the potential of this hybrid consciousness firsthand." Rick added, "This hybrid is not a threat, but a symbol of what we can achieve together. It embodies the strengths of both our species and offers solutions to problems we have struggled with for generations." A voice from the crowd shouted, "How can we trust something so alien? What if it turns against us?" Arya responded calmly, "Trust is built through understanding and cooperation. We have taken every precaution to ensure the hybrid's growth is guided and monitored. It seeks to help us, not harm us." Rick stepped forward, his voice filled with conviction. "We must look beyond our fears and embrace the possibilities. This is a chance to create a future where our children, Novian and human, can thrive together." The crowd began to quiet, the tension easing. Arya and Rick's words resonated, planting seeds of hope and curiosity. As the protest dispersed, they knew they had made progress. But the journey was far from over. A united front. The challenges of integration continued, but so did the successes. The hybrid consciousness began to contribute significantly to both human and Novian advancements. It developed new medical technologies, improved environmental sustainability, and even found ways to enhance communication and collaboration between the two species. Rick and Arya's partnership grew stronger, both personally and professionally. They became symbols of the alliance, their story inspiring many to believe in the possibility of unity. One day, as they reviewed a new proposal from the hybrid consciousness, an initiative to create a shared educational platform for Novian and human children, Arya turned to Rick with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about what this means for us, personally? Our connection started as a diplomatic mission, but it's become so much more." Rick nodded, a soft smile on his lips. I think about it all the time. We've been through so much together, and I can't imagine my life without you." Aria's eyes softened. "Neither can I. But the future is still uncertain. We have to keep pushing forward, for the sake of our people and for this hybrid." Rick took her hand, their fingers intertwining. "We'll face whatever comes together. We've already accomplished so much, and I believe we can overcome any challenge." As they looked out at the horizon, a sense of determination and hope filled them. They knew that the path ahead would be difficult, but they were ready to face it together, united by their shared vision of a better future. A new beginning. Years passed, and the hybrid consciousness continued to grow, its influence spreading across both worlds. The initial fears and skepticism gradually gave way to acceptance and admiration. The hybrid had proven itself to be a force for good, bridging the gap between humans and Novians in ways that neither species could have imagined. Rick and Aria's bond deepened, their relationship becoming a beacon of hope and unity. They continued to work tirelessly, guiding the hybrid's development and fostering cooperation between their peoples. One day, as they stood on the steps of the newly established Interstellar Academy, a place where Novian and human children would learn and grow together, Rick turned to Aria, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. "We did it," he said softly. "We created something incredible." Aria smiled, her eyes filled with pride and love. "Yes, we did. And it's only the beginning." As they watched the children playing and learning together, they knew that the future they had dreamed of was finally taking shape. The hybrid consciousness had become a symbol of hope and possibility, a testament to the power of unity and cooperation. Rick and Aria's story was one of overcoming fear and embracing the unknown, of finding strength in diversity and building a future where differences were celebrated. It was a story that inspired generations to come, a legacy of hope and unity that would endure for all time. And as they looked to the stars, Rick and Aria knew that their journey was far from over. There were still challenges to face, still unknown horizons to explore. But they were ready, together, to meet whatever the future held. For they had learned that the greatest adventures began with a single step, and the most profound connections were forged in the face of adversity. And with the hybrid consciousness by their side, they knew that anything was possible.